Bill, good morning, good afternoon to you. How are you today?
Great. Good afternoon to you. It's a chilly morning here in Wisconsin. It's 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So,
Wow. That's a chilly morning. Well, hopefully we're going to spend the next half an hour going through something amazing that you're doing for young innovators, for young entrepreneurs, for people that actually could really do with a little bit of help in this ecosystem. Um, so I just wanted to, one second, I'm just getting all my live stream sorted out here. I wanted to ask you a bunch of questions about the workshops that you're running, because you're running a series of workshops now, and maybe you could just talk a little bit about the inspiration behind the workshops and about the workshops and how they align with what we're doing at 12 Ronnie's.
yeah, I've been very lightly involved with something called the Global Innovation Field Trip for a couple of years, and I've gotten to know Julie Shively, who's one of the leaders of that over there and one of the co-founders, and she is a powerful, energetic leader, and she's very persuasive when she wants you to do something. So we were talking, and she asked me if I'd be willing to do something like this for a subset of their young innovators, some folks that had won some of their recent awards, and it sounded like a great opportunity, and so uh, we decided to do it. And the nice thing about it is, kind of aligning with 12 Ronnie's. 12 Ronnie's is all about idea validation and making sure that we're disciplined in our entrepreneurship, especially at the beginning. And that's really what this series strives to do as well, with kind of an angle for maybe a younger and maybe slightly less experienced entrepreneur.
Yeah, and do you and in terms of the less experienced entrepreneurs, I guess a lot of this would be about helping them with their mindset and the entrepreneurial mindset, because that's for new entrepreneurs, that's a major thing. And I actually wanted to post a question on that, one of the questions that I prepared, which is what makes you think the entrepreneurial mindset is so valuable for young people?
Well, young people are in a great position because many of them have not yet been influenced by maybe a traditional sort of educational system to not ask lots of questions. You know it from your children. I know it from mine. People that are around children, they know children ask the darndest questions.
They do. They do.
Some of them are a little. My son, when he was little, he liked to ask very awkward questions. Mom, I have questions, and it was always about something, something really awkward.
Yeah.
But kids are great about that. They don't know what questions they shouldn't ask yet, and that's great because there are no questions we shouldn't ask. Adults have often been kind of beaten down in their life and convinced that there's certain questions we don't ask or don't need to ask, or we already know things. And children kind of know their limitations, and so they have to ask because they can't move forward without it. So cultivating that, just because it's already germinated, it's already there.
Yeah.
Just making sure it doesn't get killed off is really what I'm trying to do. Hey, those questions you have in your mind, ask them. It's okay. There aren't any bad questions. The only bad question is the one that you don't ask. So,
Absolutely, yeah. Bill. I mean, it's really for entrepreneurs, we're trying to solve problems anyway, and it's all about asking questions and trying to seek answers in those sorts of fields and create something based on questions. So yeah, you're completely right about the question side of things. I was gonna are there any stories or any that you've come across, maybe from a previous workshop, or where young innovators sort of benefited from programs like this?
Well, I think in general, the young people that I've met that have been exposed to the Global Innovation Field Trip have benefited greatly from mentoring with adults who are like-minded, and understand how valuable it is, the stuff that these young people are doing. I'm amazed by the types of things, the types of problems that these young people are exploring. Everything from environmental and social issues to to consumer products, and and disruptive services, and getting exposed to an adult to help them avoid some avoidable mistakes is really essential. And and again, it's something we're doing at 12 Ronnies with adults. The power of a mentor or a coach is this is someone who's perhaps been there before, may not have all the answers, but does have all the questions, and can help you ask the right questions so you don't make an expensive mistake either in time or in cost that might cripple you as being able to move forward as an entrepreneur, or cripple you from being able to go to the next idea because the first one wasn't as good as you thought it was.
And one of the things that we've found in researching the reasons that a lot of startups don't work out, or have to pivot or sometimes fail is really all to do with sometimes not having the right expertise in the company. There are other reasons, but sometimes it's expertise. So having a mentor, having a coach, having somebody to just give a little bit of guidance with their experience can make all of the difference. And the data backs that up. It's a people aspect.
Absolutely. And this is where the mentor helps some of these young people. Hey, you need to find a co-founder. This might be another young person. It might be an adult or a young adult, but you need to find someone who's good at this thing, because you're going to stall out if you don't have that skill, and you may not be able to afford it. So the best way sometimes is bring in a co-founder and then split the equity down the road.
Yeah. And whether it's a co-founder, whether it's bringing in somebody that's in a mentoring role or a coaching role, or even a service provider, it's all expertise that you might not have.
Get help. It's okay to get help.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I wanted to delve in about the workshops. Now, I know you've run a couple of them already in this series. It's a six-week workshop, and those ones that you've already run, I believe, have been recorded anyway. Julie's recorded them, and we'll post in the comments about these videos. We'll post links to them so that people can view them. But maybe you could elaborate on the structure of the sessions, the ones that you've already done, but also the ones coming up, and what people can expect.
Yeah. So, when presented with this opportunity, I had lots of ideas, but my brain is always very, very disorganized, and I have a hard time bringing everything together. I had some ideas. Well, we should talk about this and we should talk about that. So I turned to one of my favorite helpers, Claude, and I put down everything that I had thought about, all my disjointed ideas in order of their disjointedness, but focused. And this is the important thing. And this is where the entrepreneurial mindset comes in. I didn't focus on an output, except I need 6 30-minute sessions that are conversational. Yes. Instead, I focused on the outcome. At the end of this, I want the people that attend to have tools to go out and address these various parts of being an entrepreneur. And so Claude did a wonderful job of taking those disjointed thoughts and adding a few that I hadn't thought of, and gave me a really great 6-week outline that I was able then to put some finishing touches on. But it got me about 90% of the way there. Now, with anything, of course, with any iterative process, you're building something, it's always you're always getting a little less wrong. And in this case, we're getting a little less wrong every week. The first week, it was kind of hard to draw out some of our young entrepreneurs that were there, because they didn't understand what their role was, what was okay, yes. What the rules were. And so the first week we tried to draw them out a little bit. We got some of the people to speak up, which was fantastic. But the second week, we kind of were a little more aggressive in giving people the opportunity to talk about the types of things they're doing, and that's what we want. We want these young people to share the successes and the negative successes, the positive and the negative successes they've had in learning, because that's the context around this whole thing: is how do we learn in the best way? How do we learn our way to all these stages of entrepreneurship? So, real quick, these six topics were: developing an entrepreneurial mindset. That's week 1. Week 2 was identifying business opportunities. Week 3, coming up this week, is creating a solid business plan. Solid business plan there means what's the minimum business plan that you can build, because no business plan survives first contact with your customer. To quote Steve Blank. Thank you, Steve. Securing and funding resources is week 4. And remember, resources aren't just money or investors. It's time. It's opportunity. It's other types of resources. Developing your product or service, and then marketing, branding, sales, customer acquisition, that sort of stuff at the end. When you actually have something, you have a business model, and now you have to execute on it. So it's a lot of conversation for 30 minutes a week. But we've really had great conversations so far. We've run a little long on each one of them, but I think that's a good sign.
That's a really good sign, and you're covering a lot of ground here. I mean, in 6 sessions, you're covering
It's just a taste. It's really just a taste, yeah. And I want people to walk away with some ideas and some thoughts and some keywords that they can go search and learn more on. Because we're in 6 weeks at 30 minutes a week, we're not going to teach disciplined entrepreneurship, but we're going to give you the tools it takes to go out and continue to learn on your own and understand what it is you don't know. And that's the best thing. Yeah,
it's what you don't know, isn't it? And actually, what was quite interesting for me over the Christmas New Year period is I've been thoroughly enjoying your book, your 20 questions book, and really, really insightful. And I'm an experienced entrepreneur, but we're all learning all the time, and we're learning off each other. And I wondered whether any of that content from the book you were bringing into the workshops.
Yeah, it's pervasive because it's who I am. As you're reading, you're probably hearing my voice because I've probably said a lot of those things to you before. And as we've had conversations, it probably sounds like me, and that's what I hoped. I mean, I wrote the book kind of in 2 or 3 streams of consciousness that were stretched over 18 months, and all of the key things there about discovery and asking the right questions. Those are the things that power this series as well. So it is who I am and what I think. So it's going to be variations on a theme.
Well, very much so. And I know that you love to use real world examples. They proliferate the book and the content, and when we're always speaking. And I think examples are a really good way of bringing out what you're talking about, and it reframes it in people's minds, and it's not just using expert language now, it's painting a picture. And I wonder if you could sort of elaborate on this. What role do real world examples play in helping the entrepreneurial skills? And maybe you could share one that you plan to discuss in one of the upcoming sessions.
Yeah, the first time I understood the power of stories to influence people was back a long time ago, and I was working in a sales organization, and my sales manager would sometimes, we'd be just sitting and talking or having a beer or whatever, and he'd tell a story about another salesperson who had a problem and how they solved it and how he helped them and that sort of thing. And usually on the way home that evening, I'd realize he was talking about me. But it was a really great way for him to address potentially uncomfortable conversations in a way that was comfortable.
Yeah.
And so years later, as a coach, I would talk to a team. Like, well, they would be facing some sort of challenge, and and I'd pull out a story. Some of my stories are true. Some of them are based on truth, and some of them are completely made up, but they're all convincing. And I'd tell the team a story about somebody else who faced something similar and what they did. So instead of me instructing the team, go and do this to solve your problem, I just tell them a story about how somebody else did it. And then it was amazing how they decided then to adopt some of those things that those other people had done, because they were just as good as them, if not better. And it was just so much more effective than being prescriptive. I just tell a little story, and sometimes it wasn't even in the moment. It was the next day, or it was with a different subject or something like that. But it was so effective, and so it became. I started writing down the various stories. Anytime I had some sort of situation, I wrote them down, and it allowed me then to adjust them a little bit for the situation. But it is such an effective way.
Well, stories have been such an effective communication method throughout human history.
For thousands of years, right? Yeah, go to France and look at the caves, look at the walls of the cave, and we'll see how we told stories even before we had words for them. So One of the stories you asked for example, one of the stories I use often is about 10 or 15 years ago, I was going to, one of my side hustles is teaching continuing education classes for insurance agents. They have to keep up their license and have to take so many hours every 2 years. And, I realized that in the northern part of my state, there were very few providers doing in-person classes anymore. And I could tell by the license numbers of the people that lived up there that they were not young people. They were people that had been for a long time. And I knew that they didn't like the online classes. They told me that. So I had all these facts that I believed about my customer. And so I started scheduling classes up there, and I was booking rooms and hotels, and even started printing up the manuals because I'd sent out an email and I had 150 people that said, yep, I'll be there. But what I didn't do is I didn't ask for money yet. So after I had $2,500 of expenses sunk, I sent out an email and said, okay, it's time to pay. And 2 people out of 150 paid. So I had $2,500 in expenses and $150 in revenue, and then had to figure out how to cover the mortgage that month.
You'll learn from that, won't you? You've learned from that. We all learn from these things.
Yes, and so I learned to say, well, the say-do gap isn't because people lie or they're bad people. It's just the difference between yes and yes, I'll pay, and here's my money are different things, and you have to isolate them. If you send out a survey to your customer and 1,000 people say, I'm ready to buy tomorrow, that's okay. But then you need to send the same people a payment page that allows them to put $20 down towards their purchase. And then you see how many people are willing to pay.
Well, that's always something that you focus on as well, is that it's not necessarily what people say, it's what people do. It's customer behavior, and that's
you test behaviors, and what people say is not a behavior. Yeah. It's a platitude, it's a courtesy. And that doesn't pay the bills. In fact, similar story, the one of the cable TV companies here in town was bringing fiber optics to various neighborhoods, and they offered everybody in town the opportunity for their neighborhood to win the right to be towards the top of the list to get the fiber optic installed. All you had to do is send in $20, and whichever neighborhood sent in the most $20 checks, they'd get to the top of the list, and then the $20 would be put towards your first month's bill. So there's very little skin in the game, but there was still something, and there's the penny gap as a concept out there. Is like the difference between 0 and a penny is amazing if you test it.
Yeah, I mean, my expert area, idea validation, is all about that. It's all about behavior, and often it doesn't match what people say. If you ask people, is this a great idea? They often say yes. But if you ask them, yeah, it's great. Yeah, I love that. But if you ask them to pre-purchase it,
may I have your credit card number?
Exactly.
Oh, exactly. Well, but the cool thing is, in that moment, you find out why.
Yeah.
Okay, so they won't pay why. And I had a team that went 18 months building a product before they asked to pay. And those whole 18 months, every month I said, so are we going to ask them to pay this month? No, we're not ready yet. Well, actually, you were ready the first month. All you had to do is describe the service you were going to offer. And if it was valuable to them, they would have put down $100 to be on the beta list. But they didn't do that. And then 18 months later, they found out that their customer wasn't even willing to spend $20 a month towards something that was costing a couple of $100 to produce.
That's such a valuable lesson to be learning.
And I didn't say I told you so. I just kind of smiled and nodded. And they said, I know.
And Bill, is this the sort of thing that you hope participants will want to take away from the workshop? These real world pieces of advice that can save a lot of time, not just for innovators, but for all of us that are involved in products and services that we want customers to get involved with.
Yeah, two big things. The other part of stories is that they're memorable. So I want them to carry the stories with them so that in their mind, when they're about to do something, oh, hey, I don't want to do that thing that Bill did because that was a disaster for him. And then, and then the other thing is just the discipline and the permission. Permission is such a big deal. The permission to say, I'm not sure. I'm going to learn before I do this. And it's okay to go out and ask these questions. It's okay to show a customer a low fidelity prototype, because if my customer really is an early adopter customer, they'll still rip it out of my hands and ask me when they could have it.
Yes.
They're going to start doing these things that to regular people look foolish or incomplete, but to their customer will either resonate or it won't, and then they'll make their big mistakes in private instead of in public.
Yes, yeah, that's where you want to make those mistakes, isn't it? Rather than in front of everybody else.
And you survive them when you make them small.
Yeah.
Small mistakes you can survive. Big mistakes you can't. Big mistakes you have to go get a real job, and your nest egg that you had to spend on your entrepreneurial effort is gone, and your reputation is destroyed because you made a big mistake instead of a series of small ones on the way to either learning to do it or to stop and do something else.
And that's very much the mission that we've said about with 12 Ronnies. It doesn't sound very positive trying to help people avoid the big mistakes, but it's such a major part of entrepreneurship. It's trying to avoid these mistakes, and that's why mentors and experts can just save so much time within this. And we primarily teach entrepreneurship, Bill, to adults, to not necessarily experienced entrepreneurs, but to adults that want to start businesses. I wanted to just touch on how your experience with Invent Future Global and with 12 Ronnies is shaping the way that you're approaching now teaching sort of younger people entrepreneurship.
Yeah, some of the some of the more sort of advanced topics, like get a co-founder, or how to talk to people about funding, that sort of thing. Normally I may not have thought these are things I'd talk to young people about. Yes. But as I'm meeting these young people and finding out that the things that they're doing are just as complex and important as the things that adults are doing, I'm finding that I am having those conversations, but just warning them to make sure you get adults involved, because as the stakes get higher, you want to make sure that there are people around you that understand legal issues and financial issues and tax issues and other things that could potentially get you in trouble or get your parents in trouble. You don't want to be doing something out of your house that might not be lawful in your country, or taking in revenue but not charging sales taxes or VAT or whatever it is in your area. You want to make sure that those things are getting done right, so that the right time to bring in somebody is just as important for these young people. And that's something that surprised me, because in my mind, I think maybe before I got involved with this, in my mind, a young person's entrepreneurial efforts might be a lemonade stand or selling cookies door to door up and down their street. And it's quite the opposite. Some of these young people are taking on the biggest problems that there are.
Yeah. And it feels to me that young people are very interested in the impact that their ideas are going to have. They want to shape the future. It's not just about making money. When I started as an entrepreneur, when I left university, to me it was an approach to making money. I wasn't trying to impact the world or change anything major. I was just looking for opportunities to make money on an alternative route. And with entrepreneurship, often you start off with an idea and you're starting off yourself. It's your idea, but really, as the saying goes, teamwork makes the dream work. Mm-hmm. It's often better to build a business with others that have complementary skills and that have the right chemistry. You can get a lot further with a group of people heading in the same direction. Is this something that you cover in your workshops about collaboration and teamwork?
Yeah, it's hard enough for adults to get along with each other in an entrepreneurial setting. It's even harder for young people, because they may not have all of the the skills, the people skills that that adults can work a lifetime to gather when they're younger. So we want to emphasize, do get a team with you. Do focus on the relationships. Understand each other and your motivations, because you don't want to spend a lot of time fighting with each other. And and young people can be just as stubborn as adults, and can even be harder to change their minds. So we got to focus on these things, because it's important to have those teammates. But if you can't get along, then it's worse than working alone.
Well, yeah, absolutely. If you can't get along. Now, in terms of advice, given that these are young people, what advice would you give to parents or educators who want to support young people in particularly in the entrepreneurial mindset and outside of the workshops?
Yeah, first thing would be to reach out to folks like Julie, and the folks at Global Field Trip, Global Innovation Field Trip, because there are a number of organizations peripheral to that, and people that are out there offering services to young innovators, both for free and for a cost. Parents encourage it. These types of behaviors, if they're nurtured and learned early on, will only magnify as they get older, and continue to pay back for that young person and give them additional opportunities as they move forward in life. For my kids, they've been exposed to my thoughts over the years, and they're both very entrepreneurially minded, and I believe it helps them in their work. Now that one's out of college and the other one's just finishing up, looking at opportunities and understanding the path forward, that there are many different paths, but there are really great ways to learn about those different paths without making big decisions and potentially trapping yourself in a corner. So parents, get your young person help, even if it's they may be trying to do things that you don't understand, and in ways that you don't understand because maybe you don't have an entrepreneurial background. That's okay. Every parent's wish is for their child to exceed what they did in life, and so this is a great way to help your child have potentially more than you did when it comes to opportunities. So get them involved, show them these things, and it very, very quickly becomes addictive for the young people. When you start learning and start having that success in learning, you just want to do more, and I can't see anything wrong with that.
No, absolutely. Bill, thank you. I've just noticed there's quite a few comments and questions, but I was so absorbed in listening to you, but in the comments field. So you mentioned the Global Innovation Field Trip. Well, let me just show you one of their comments here. So they're sort of put that forward. Just as a comment, but I have a question here, which I wanted to put from Christopher Norris. He wanted to know, how young can an innovator be?
That's a good question. I don't know how young they go, but I heard about one that was 5 years old.
Right. Here's one that's slightly younger. So I've just had Global Innovation.
Thank you. 4.5. Okay. There you go. Yeah, and just imagine where that young person is going to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, these are people I want to get behind now, because I'm probably going to be working for them. Yep. So I want to get on their good side now, so that they'll give poor me a job when I'm looking for one.
Well, look at this, Bill. It's amazing. So this 4.5-year-old still presents at each event. He's now nearly 9, and is also co-hosting the program. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I mean, you can only imagine, how someone like him could influence other people his age.
So, 1 second. Let me just take off the comments. Getting used to this new format, actually, of here. So, Bill, thank you very, very much for talking about these workshops and the incredible work you're doing with young innovators. We're going to post in the comments now links to how people can attend them and watch the videos. And I wish you luck and lots of fun for the rest of the series. And I'll certainly be attending a couple of the events to listen in. So thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it today. I appreciate it.
Okay.